Hello everyone. I am Eric from Invensis Learning, with a session on Product Backlog. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Are you aspiring to learn how product management works? Then you must understand a product backlog. You should have an insight into what product backlog is at first, what processes you need to follow, and why it is so important in any product management domain. There are many concepts in product management, but the real-life scenarios with customers and stakeholders and the development team working on any project make it popular. In its article, we will discuss what product backlog and everything related to that. In today's session, we will also discuss other factors responsible for the product backlog. So, without further ado, let's get started with today's agenda. We will begin the session by discussing the product backlog and the help strategy backlog concept. Next, we will move on to know about roadmap and requirements. Post that, we will take a look at why product backlog is important in detail. Moving on, we will discuss what are the qualities of an effective backlog. Next, we will discuss backlog refinement and its importance in a straightforward way. Moving on, we will also discuss the example of product backlog in product management. Next, we will discuss the how to build a product backlog. We will end the session by looking at the organize and iterate method in product backlog. I hope you are okay with the topic of discussion. So, let's get started. What is product backlog by definition? In product management, a product backlog is a list of prioritized work for the development team, derived from the roadmap and its requirements to improve the product. IT also has a list of the new features, changes to existing features, bug fixes, infrastructure changes, and other activities that a team will deliver to achieve a specific goal. The product backlog is the single trustworthy source for things that a team works. That means nothing gets done that isn't on the product backlog. The presence of a product backlog list item on a product backlog will not guarantee that it will be delivered on time. Instead, it represents an option that the team has for delivering the specific goal rather than any commitment. Product backlog list items take a variety of formats, with the user stories. The team who uses the product backlog determines the format they choose and looks to the backlog items to prompt a solution. Product backlog items vary in area and detail, based largely on how quickly a team will work on them. So that a team will work on soon should be small in size and contain sufficient detail for the team to start work, can represent the product backlog multiple ways, such as physical form using index cards or sticky notes, or electronic forms such as text files, spreadsheets, or backlog management tools. The better option is electronic boards for a team with remote members to collect a great deal of information about product backlog items. The advantage of physical boards is to make the product backlog continuously visible and concrete during discussions around the product backlog. Strategy. The strategy backlog consists of strategic themes, which are differentiating business objectives that connect a portfolio to the strategy of the enterprise. They guide the portfolio strategy and provide business context for portfolio decision-making. The to-be-implemented themes are then selected for a strategy cycle. The portfolio backlog is one of the highest-level backlogs in the Scaled Agile framework, SAFe. It does provide a holding area for upcoming business, and enabler epics, also called short-term executable backlog, have been prioritized for implementations. Due to their scope and typically sawing nature, portfolio epics usually require substantial investment and considerably impact both solutions and business outcomes. Strategic themes offer various ways to align the business strategies of an enterprise or any government agency with a SAFe portfolio. Working together, enterprise executives and portfolio stakeholders analyze different inputs to establish a set of strategic themes. Roadmap and requirements. Let's start with the 2Rs. A product backlog's team's roadmap and requirements provide the foundation for the product backlog. A product roadmap is a concept on the plan of action or a platform to understand how a product and its solution will develop over time. Product owners relate to roadmaps to figure out future product functionality and when they will release new features. When work is done in Agile development, a roadmap provides important context for the team's work and should be responsible for shifts in the competitive landscape. Multiple Agile teams may share a single product roadmap. Sharing the roadmap. Once a roadmap is built and done, share it with the entire product team to understand the vision and direction. While high-principled, this strategy is flawed from the start. Each team member has a blueprint of the roadmap and keeps everyone up to speed. Requirements. While building a great product requires continuous research and thorough planning, But where to start? Product managers start with a product requirements document, which is also known as PRD. A product requirements document defines the product you are about to build. It outlines the product's purpose, features, functionalities, and behavior. Next, you share the PRD with and seek input from stakeholders, business and technical teams who will help build, launch or market your product. Once all stakeholders are aligned, the PRD serves as a compass, providing uncut direction toward a product's purpose with creating a shared understanding among business and technical teams. 2. Why it is important. A product backlog takes feedback from multiple sources, such as other developers, sales, business development, but the most important is from the user's end. It's your job to take in feedback, prioritize, managing and work on it for your future product. Without a proper process, your boards can become clogged with actionable feedback and a lack of focus. In contrast, a well-managed backlog leads to a more efficient, effective, and focused team. The result shall be a better product and one that your customers want to buy. Product backlog list items act as placeholders for future conversations about an option for achieving your desired outcome. That means a team doesn't have to fully flesh out an idea before dumping it to the backlog items. Instead, a product backlog item only needs to be descriptive when a team starts working on it. The vigorous nature of a product backlog provides teams with a way to manage their potential ways to deliver that outcome and learn about the desired outcome. In addition, when a team starts work, the product backlog does not need to be complete, so the team can start with all the initial ideas and add new product backlog items as they learn more. A team can remove items that they discover do not contribute to achieving the desired outcome. Avoid producing extraneous outputs that do not add value and spend their time working on truly valuable changes. The teams can use the product backlog to avoid wasting time debating whether an option is valuable or not. The team can attach a product backlog item to investigate the idea further when a new idea presents itself. The team can then prioritize consideration of that idea alongside other items and remove the product backlog if the idea does not progress toward the desired outcome. 3. What are the qualities of effective backlog? A product backlog represents all of the desired goals and outcomes within the development team of a product. They are the specific tasks a team calculates to complete when they design or improvise upon any product. What makes a product backlog so effective? Product backlogs are in constant evolution, changing and adapting based on the current needs of stakeholders and customers. Therefore, it needs to be continuously refined and adapted to keep a backlog up to date and in its most effective form. This process takes time, as there are simple, powerful strategies for maintaining a quality backlog. Good product backlogs share similar characteristics, which Mike Cohn and Roman Pichler captured with the acronym DEEP, which stands for Detailed Appropriately, Estimated, Emergent, and Prioritized. So, in the same manner, a good and efficient product backlog has 4 characteristics, which are detailed appropriately, estimated, emergent, prioritized. We will cover all of these attributes in detail. Detailed appropriately. Once a backlog item gets closer to being completed or moved into a sprint backlog, it requires more detail. Upcoming backlog items should be detailed so that the development team can better understand them. The closer an item is to be completed, the more detail it should have. On the other hand, lower items on the priority list in the product backlog don't require detail as much. It's a below par use of time to add details to lower priority items since you never know how the backlog will develop. It is possible to waste a lot of time detailing low priority items when they might be removed or revised later in the process. Estimated. Should focus comprehensive estimation on high priority items. Once you refine your backlog and add more details to top priority items, you can improve your estimation. They can help you accurately, and practices reflect the reality of an item from the customer's perspective. It is difficult to estimate lower priority items properly. Your estimation will be a guess when you are further down with the priority list, as you don't meet all of the information at the primary stage. In these cases, you should use a simple, agile estimation technique. Examples like D-shirt sizing, labeling work items as XXS, S, M, L, XL, to make a guesstimate. Then, based on the information you have at that moment, make an approximate estimate of the effort necessary for that backlog item. Emergent. The more you master the product and its customers, the more you can enhance your product backlog. The backlog is a living document that acts for your plan at any point in time. It's not implacable, and it should see improvements and revisions as you move. With the information gleaned from retrospectives and stakeholders' feedback, you can update the backlog to reflect what you've learned along the way. Then, allow your backlog to add, evolve, remove, and distill items as required. Prioritized. A product backlog needs full prioritization. Items at the top are always a higher priority, and items toward the bottom are lower. When deciding which items should be prioritized first, consider the value each item will provide. Your team can maximize its efforts by prioritizing the backlog items that will provide the most value to customers at any given time. Since this will change depending on your customer's current needs, you must continually adjust and refine your priority order. 5. Backlog Refinement. Backlog refinement is a continuing process in which the product owner and the development team collaborate to make sure that items in the product backlog they are understood the same way by all involved, shared understanding. Have a figure estimate for the relative difficulty and effort of their implementation, and they are ordered as per their priority in terms of business value and effort required. In short, backlog refinement is about creating a shared understanding of what the product will and won't do, the effort it will take to implement it, and the order in which you'll do that. Why is backlog refinement important? Few other reasons why backlog refinement is necessary. It improves the regulation of the sprint planning meeting because most questions are already answered. It keeps the product backlog attentive, clean, and relevant, so you won't feel like you're drowning in ever-growing to-do list items. It grips the benefits of collaboration in detailing user stories and defects. It creates a shared understanding within the Scrum team and the stakeholders around it. Refinement usually expands no more than 10% of the capacity of the development team. However, product backlog items can be updated by the product owner or at the product owner's discretion. Example of product backlog. Team organization. A backlog structured around a team organization, the hierarchy is molded by the different teams working on the product in the organization. A few things occur when we structure. Teams can resolve dependencies. The time they see their backlog side, teams with strong dependencies suddenly get the visibility they didn't have before among each other. Such positioning makes it much easier to communicate and resolve dependencies. Can lose user stories content. When we organize by the team, user stories become abundant from goals and strategy. One hack is to complement this method with heavy use of release tagging for goal setting. Products can take new shapes. It's been studied and proven. But, for better or worse, products themselves tend to take on the characteristics of the organizational structures that create them. Process. Another way to structure a backlog, common in more framework transformation in organizations, is around the workflows and processes necessary to pull an idea through the channel to discharge. For example, if you want to see reflected in your product backlog, you may have certain processes for managing the product lifecycle. A few things can occur when we structure this way. Can optimize workflow. When we structure the backlog by high-level processes, we may closely watch the flow among each step and find ways to optimize it. Backlog size can be limited. A process-oriented backlog is especially useful when the product owner is good at saying no, and they want to keep a few items on the list as possible in their backlog. Stakeholders then can come to that place. With the setup, stakeholders can contribute easily by having their special place in the backlog, known as a wish list. When accepted, their ideas move into the product backlog and begin flowing down the pipeline. User stories can lose context. For example, user stories in a process-oriented backlog can lose critical context regarding their fit into the overarching picture. Components. You may want to create a work breakdown structure of product components or deliverables being developed and organize the backlog around the product. A few things can occur when we structure this way. Can support product modularity. If your organization sells parts or components of a product, rather than the entire product, to any third party, organized by a component that can help understand progress per order. Suppose you use traditional planning methods to plan and commit to a Gantt schedule. In that case, traditional planning methods can excel, which will help understand how and what leads up to entire component expectations and being ready for production. Before anything is built, the structure requires a lot of detailed thought and planning upfront. As a result, you can create a lot of overhead, depending on how you develop, especially if you're building a product backlog without a model. When change happens, managing dependencies can be difficult, which it often does these days. Resolving them makes it difficult to deliver a useful feature without a lot of legwork and hassle. Planning horizon. Another way to structure the backlog is the planning horizon. The planning horizon has a 5-stage concept common to product development organizations. It starts with high insight and works down many layers to daily commitments. Product vision. Product roadmap. Iteration plan. Release plan. Daily commitment. Organization by planning horizon can go with the following. First, stakeholders can easily understand it. Remember, as we mentioned initially, many stakeholders want to know when they are done. By structuring the planning, the horizon helps the stakeholder understand but what time they can expect what. Therefore, it is challenging to find a valuable way to separate the plan as a commitment. Type of work. So much more work goes into a product than the features it provides, bugs fixes, refactoring, process improvements. Therefore, a product backlog is organized around these different types of work, ensuring we focus on the feature and place it on other types of work necessary to deliver value to our customers. Here's what can happen when we structure around the type of work. First, teams can evenly distribute their attention. Second, this structure makes it easier to tell teams to pick at least one thing from each bucket of different work items. Third, it's also easier to understand work distribution among different types. The services can simplify classes. This approach is useful when using different classes of services, and a column attribute is not enough. Value can become invisible. Organizing by type of work can be difficult when we forget about value, which should always be top of mind. For that reason, we recommend including the type of work as a single column rather than letting it dominate the backlog structure. Goals. With a warning that there are many ways to structure a product backlog, we will now cover the structure I recommend the most, a goal-driven backlog, in which we aim to capture the goals and vision of the product broken down into sub-features. Here's what can happen when we structure around goals. First, teams can stay focused on business value. The benefit with this structure is that it all but guarantees that teams are focusing on items with high business value, improving the right things in the product. Work can be more measurable and accountable. By defining these high-level goals, also called business epics, we can create quick, measurable feedback loops to understand whether we are working on the right thing or not. Also, we become held accountable for meeting our goals, which we see every day in the backlog. How to build a product backlog. As you start creating your product backlog, you consider using more flexible software solutions, such as Jira Software or Lucidchart. Template for Lucidchart's product backlog is one of the effortless ways to start building your Scrum product backlog. It is a living document that's easy to rearrange and share with stakeholders however you'd like it. Whatever solution you move with, follow these steps to start your Scrum product backlog. Step 1. Define your customer. The customer is someone who pays your wages. The customers are also the ones who use the deliverables produced by the Agile team. The two might contradict sometimes. My advice is to keep it effortless and not overthink it. Your goal is to keep your customer pleased by delivering meaningful functionalities. Identify who is the person who represents the customer's voice and ensure that in the eyes of this person, what you deliver brings them worth. A customer might be internal, colleagues, other departments, or external, but a paying client. When you have multiple customers, you may want to prioritize them. But clarifying the order of requirements based on customers will save you from inconvenience during the execution phase. Step 2. Define your product insight. If you have a live product or software, it will be easier for you to identify. A product can be a process, service, or simply a problem that you can resolve. To give you some examples of product insight. Make sure to make daily meetings. Minimize human error during the execution operation. Step 3. Define the solution. If you have a product, you are required to define functionalities that you aim to develop next. Examples of functionalities for making daily meetings are: you can use the automatic suggestion of the daily report to launch the community program. Suppose it defines how you will resolve the issue if your product is instead a service, process improvement, or solving a specific problem. In that case, you'll, for example, to replace non-mechanical data collection with a scan tool, to implement data validations. At this stage, you will list down your top 3 to 5 functionalities as a list. You'll make a comprehensive list later. You can start with 1 to 2 functionalities that are known at that moment and add more iteratively. Do not jump to the next process until you have defined liberated functionalities at this step, which is key to your Agile implementation success. Step 4. Prioritize the functionalities optimizing business value. You should know your customer for this step and performance prioritize, and there are 2 opinions. The product owner needs to have a strong visionary and decide what is best for the customer. To ask the customer, the backlog should be clearly defined, high priority items at the time and items that are not a priority at the bottom. If an item in the list has no value, it should not be added to the backlog. You need to confirm that priorities can always change, which means you need an easy decision to start today. Then, you can postpone the tough decisions for later. Step 5. Rewrite the deliverables as stories. The chances are something you have heard of user stories before. Why? Aren't deliverables good enough? Deliverables are a great way to account for advancement. However, the user stories help the Agile team understand and deliver business value to the customers. Step 6. Decide what story to deliver. At this step, you have to prioritize the stories. Multiple stories define different functionality. Ordering the stories is a risky step. Now it's time to decide who the customer is and the functionality you decided to deliver first. If your user stories have a sequential time, they will provide the new process, the draft, and the final version. Then it is okay. The draft version will come on top of the backlog list, and the final version will be lower. Organize and iterate. Iteration planning is an event where all squad members determine how much of the team backlog they can commit to delivering the next iteration. As a set of committed iteration goals, the team summarizes their work. Teams plan by selecting user stories from the team backlog and committing to executing them in the upcoming iteration. The team's backlog has been drilled and partially planned during program increment (PI) planning. To define a realistic scope for the iteration, the organization plans to work. Each Agile team admits to a set of user stories for the next iteration, the iteration backlog, and summarizes those stories into a set of iteration goals. The iteration backlog and goals are based on the team's capacity and consider each story's difficulty, size, and dependencies on other user stories. The teams commit to the goals of the iteration and adjust stories as necessary to achieve the larger purpose at the end of planning. In return, management does not interfere or adjust the scope of the iteration, allowing the team to stay focused. To keep the backlog healthy. Once the product backlog is built, it's necessary to maintain it regularly to keep pace with the program. To ensure prioritization, product owners should review the backlog before the iteration planning meeting and take a response from the last iteration that has been incorporated. Regular backlog review is often called backlog grooming, some use backlog refinement. Once the backlog gets bigger, product owners need to group the backlog into short-term and long-term items. Short-term items need to be fully fleshed out before they are labeled as such. That means complete user stories have been drawn up, collaboration with the design and development team has also been sorted, and development estimates have been made. Longer-term items can remain a bit indistinct, though it's a good idea to get an approximate estimate from the development team to help to prioritize them. The keyword here is approx. Estimates will change once the team fully understands and begins work on those longer term. The backlog serves as the association between the development team and the product owner. The product owner is open to reprioritizing work in the backlog at any time due to customer feedback, refining estimates, and new requirements. However, once work is in progress, keep changes to a minimum as they disrupt the development team and affect the focus, flow, and morale. Suppose you are a manager of any IT or software development sector. In that case, a product backlog is an efficient way to organize your team's developments and efforts and understand how to use and help you successfully prioritize tasks. Invensis Learning can help you get into product management concepts. At Invensis Learning, we provide certification training courses for professionals' qualifications. Enroll with Invensis Learning to learn from the best in the industry, become a certified professional in the world of IT.